The morning sun filtered through the tall windows of the Sussex family home in Montecito, California, casting gentle shadows across the nursery where 2-year-old Lilibet Diana Mountbatten Windsor played quietly with her wooden blocks. Her bright red hair caught the light as she stacked one block carefully on top of another, her small tongue poking out in concentration just like her father Prince Harry used to do as a child. Meghan Markle sat on the plush carpet nearby, watching her daughter with a mixture of love and worry. The christening plans had been weighing heavily on her mind for weeks now. Every decision seemed to carry the weight of royal protocol, family expectations, and the couple's desire to create new traditions for their children. The guest list alone had become a source of countless sleepless nights. "Mama, look!" Lilibet exclaimed, pointing proudly at her tower of blocks that wobbled precariously but somehow stayed standing. Her voice carried the sweet innocence of a child who didn't yet understand the complexities of her royal heritage or the media attention that followed her family's every move. Meghan smiled and clapped her hands. "Beautiful work, my darling. Just like you, it's strong and special." She reached over to smooth down Lilibet's unruly curls, inherited directly from the Spencer family line through her grandfather Prince William and great-grandmother Princess Diana. The sound of Harry's footsteps on the hardwood floors announced his arrival before he appeared in the doorway. His face showed the same mix of excitement and stress that had become familiar over the past few months of planning. In his hand, he held his phone, which had been ringing constantly with calls from various royal advisors, family members, and friends offering opinions about the upcoming christening. "Any news from London?" Meghan asked, though she could tell from his expression that the conversation hadn't gone as hoped. Harry sat down cross-legged on the floor beside his wife and daughter. Lilibet immediately abandoned her blocks and crawled into his lap, wrapping her tiny arms around his neck. The simple gesture seemed to melt away some of the tension in his shoulders. "Grandmother is still hoping we'll reconsider having the ceremony at Windsor," Harry said quietly, mindful of little ears that might understand more than they let on. "She feels it would be more appropriate for a great-granddaughter of the monarch." The weight of tradition pressed down on them both. Queen Elizabeth had christened all of her great-grandchildren at either St. George's Chapel at Windsor Castle or the Chapel Royal at St. James's Palace. The idea of breaking from this tradition felt both liberating and terrifying to the young parents who had already made so many unconventional choices. Meghan's hand found Harry's, their fingers intertwining as they had countless times before when facing difficult decisions together. "What did you tell her?" "That we want Lilibet to have a ceremony that feels right for our family," Harry replied, his voice gaining strength as he spoke. "Something that honors both her royal heritage and our new life here in California." The decision to raise their children in America had not been easy, but it had given them the freedom to make choices without the constant scrutiny of the British press. However, it also meant navigating the delicate balance between maintaining family relationships and staying true to their own values and desires. Lilibet had begun playing with the buttons on Harry's shirt, completely oblivious to the serious conversation happening around her. Her presence served as a constant reminder of what truly mattered, creating a loving, stable environment for their children to grow up in, regardless of royal protocols or public expectations. The christening venue had become the first major decision point. The couple's estate in Montecito offered privacy and security, allowing them to control every aspect of the ceremony. The gardens were beautiful, with rolling lawns and mature oak trees that would provide a stunning backdrop for photographs. More importantly, it would allow them to invite the people they truly wanted to share this special moment with, without the political implications that came with a guest list for a royal chapel ceremony. "I keep thinking about Archie's christening," Meghan said softly. "How beautiful it was, but also how restricted we felt. Every decision had to be approved by so many people. The guest list, the photographer, even the flowers had to follow certain protocols." Harry nodded, remembering the stress of that day. While it had been magical in many ways, it had also felt like they were performing in a play rather than celebrating their son's spiritual beginning. The pressure to include certain family members while excluding others based on royal precedents had overshadowed what should have been a purely joyful occasion. "This time will be different," Harry said with conviction. "We've learned that we can honor tradition while also creating new ones that feel authentic to us." The question of godparents had proven equally complex. Royal tradition typically dictated that godparents be chosen from among close family members and long-standing friends of the royal family. However, Harry and Meghan wanted to select people who would truly be present in Lilibet's life, regardless of their social status or connection to the monarchy. The couple had made a list of potential godparents that included some surprising choices. Tyler Perry, who had provided them with security and housing during their transition to private life, topped the list. His genuine care for their family during a vulnerable time had created a bond that went far deeper than traditional royal friendships. Oprah Winfrey, who had become not just a friend but a mentor to Meghan, was another strong contender. Her influence on Meghan's personal growth and her support during some of the darkest periods of their royal life had created a relationship built on mutual respect and genuine affection. The list also included some more traditional choices. Princess Eugenie, Harry's cousin, had remained one of his closest family connections despite the tension with other royals. Her loyalty and understanding had never wavered, even when supporting Harry and Meghan meant facing criticism from other family members. Marcus Anderson, Meghan's longtime friend who had introduced her to Harry, represented the Toronto chapter of her life that had shaped her into the woman Harry fell in love with. His continued presence in their lives served as a bridge between Meghan's pre-royal identity and her current role as Harry's wife and Lilibet's mother. The decision-making process had sparked numerous late-night conversations between Harry and Meghan. They would sit in their kitchen after the children were asleep, nursing cups of tea and weighing the pros and cons of each potential godparent. The conversations often extended beyond just the christening, touching on their hopes and fears for their children's futures. "I want her to grow up knowing she's loved by people who chose to be in her life," Meghan had said one evening. "Not just people who are there because of duty or obligation." Harry understood this desire deeply. His own childhood had been filled with people who were present because of their positions rather than their genuine care for him as a person. The distinction between authentic relationships and those born of royal protocol had become crystal clear to him over the years. The couple also grappled with the question of including any members of the royal family. While relationships remained strained with some family members, there were others who had made efforts to maintain connections despite the geographical and emotional distance. Princess and Harry's aunt had surprised them with her pragmatic support. Her own experiences as a royal who had chosen to give her children more normal upbringings had created an unexpected understanding between them. Her occasional phone calls and messages showed a genuine interest in her great-niece's well-being that went beyond mere family obligation. The planning process had also forced them to confront their own feelings about raising children with royal titles in America. Lilibet's full name carried the weight of history, named for Queen Elizabeth's family nickname and bearing Princess Diana's name as her middle name. Yet she was growing up thousands of miles away from the palaces and traditions those names represented. "Sometimes I wonder if we're being fair to her," Meghan admitted one afternoon as they watched Lilibet play in the garden. "Giving her these connections to a world she may never fully be part of." Harry considered this question that had haunted him since their move to California. "I think we're giving her the gift of choice," he said finally. "She can decide for herself how much of that world she wants to embrace. But she'll always know where she came from and how much she was loved from the very beginning." The christening planning had become more than just organizing a ceremony. It had become an exercise in defining their family's identity and values. Every decision reflected their hopes for their children's futures and their commitment to raising them with both awareness of their heritage and freedom to forge their own paths. As the date grew closer, the pressure from various quarters had intensified. Royal correspondents speculated endlessly about the guest list and venue. Family members offered advice that sometimes felt more like demands. Friends worried about the political implications of their choices. Through it all, Harry and Meghan tried to maintain focus on what truly mattered, creating a meaningful ceremony that would welcome their daughter into a community of love and support. The details of location, guests, and tradition seemed less important than ensuring that Lilibet would feel surrounded by people who genuinely cared about her well-being and happiness. The morning routine continued as normal despite the weighty decisions ahead. Lilibet needed breakfast, stories, and playtime regardless of royal protocols or family tensions. In many ways, these simple daily moments provided clarity about what truly mattered in their lives. 3 weeks before the planned christening date, Harry found himself pacing the length of his home office while speaking on a secure phone line with his grandmother. The conversation had been going on for nearly an hour, and both parties seemed to be struggling to find common ground. "I understand your position, Harry, but you must consider the precedent this sets." Queen Elizabeth's voice carried the weight of decades of experience navigating royal protocol. "A private ceremony in California, without proper royal representation, sends a message that perhaps we don't intend." Harry stopped pacing and looked out the window toward the garden where Meghan was pushing Lilibet on her favorite swing. The pure joy on his daughter's face as she giggled and called for "higher, mama, higher," reminded him of what they were really celebrating. "With respect, grandmother, I believe the message we want to send is that Lilibet is loved and welcomed into this world by people who will actually be present in her life," Harry replied, trying to keep his voice respectful but firm. "This isn't about rejecting tradition, it's about creating meaningful traditions for our family." The silence on the other end of the line stretched for several long seconds. Harry could almost picture his grandmother sitting in her private study at Windsor, surrounded by the portraits and photographs of generations of royal children who had followed the prescribed path without question. "Perhaps we could find a compromise," the Queen finally suggested. "A small ceremony at St. George's Chapel, followed by a private reception at Frogmore House. This would allow for both tradition and the intimacy you desire." Harry felt the familiar tug of old loyalties and expectations. The offer was generous, considering the current state of relationships within the family. It would certainly make things easier politically and might help repair some of the bridges that had been strained over the past few years. But, as he watched Meghan lift Lilibet from the swing and spin her around, both of them laughing in the California sunshine, he knew that going backward wasn't the answer for their family. "Thank you for the offer, grandmother. It means more than you know that you're willing to make those arrangements," Harry said carefully. "But, Meghan, and I feel strongly that this ceremony should take place here, in the home where Lilibet is growing up, surrounded by the community we've built." The conversation ended with polite but strained goodbyes, leaving Harry with a familiar mixture of guilt and determination. He had spent his entire life trying to balance his desire to honor his family's expectations with his need to live authentically. The christening had become a symbol of that ongoing struggle. Meanwhile, Meghan was dealing with her own set of challenges. Her mother, Doria Ragland, had arrived from Los Angeles the day before to help with final preparations and to spend time with her granddaughter. The two women sat on the terrace while Lilibet napped, discussing everything from catering options to the emotional complexity of the situation. "You know, sweetheart, sometimes the most loving thing you can do for family is to show them a different way forward," Doria said, her voice carrying the wisdom of someone who had watched her daughter navigate increasingly complex family dynamics over the years. Meghan leaned back in her chair, feeling the weight of trying to make decisions that would honor both her husband's heritage and their family's new reality. "I keep wondering if we're being selfish, Mom. Harry has already given up so much for our life here. Maybe I should be more willing to compromise on this." "Have you forgotten how you felt during Archie's christening?" Doria asked gently. "You told me afterward that it felt like you were watching your own son's ceremony from the outside, like you were a guest at your own child's celebration." The memory hit Meghan with unexpected force. Despite the beauty of St. George's Chapel and the honor of the occasion, she had indeed felt disconnected from the ceremony. Every detail had been predetermined by protocol, every guest selected based on royal hierarchy rather than personal connection to their son. "I want Lilibet's christening to feel like ours," Meghan said, the conviction growing in her voice. "I want to look around the room and see people who love her for who she is, not because of what she represents." The guest list had finally been finalized after weeks of careful consideration. Tyler Perry would serve as one of the godparents, his role in their lives extending far beyond the help he had provided during their transition. His own journey from difficult beginnings to success and his commitment to helping others had made him a natural choice to help guide Lilibet's spiritual development. Oprah had initially hesitated when asked to be a godmother, concerned about the public attention it might bring to the ceremony. However, her genuine love for the family and her desire to support Lilibet's growth had ultimately led her to accept the honor. Princess Eugenie had been the easiest choice among Harry's family members. Her unwavering support and her own experience as a mother had made her an obvious selection. The fact that she had maintained her relationship with Harry and Meghan despite pressure from other family members demonstrated the kind of loyalty they wanted Lilibet to understand and value. The fourth godparent spot had gone to Dr. Melissa Drake, Meghan's former professor from Northwestern University who had become a lifelong mentor and friend. Her influence on Meghan's intellectual development and her continued guidance on matters of social justice and activism represented the values the couple hoped to instill in their daughter. The ceremony itself would be conducted by Bishop Michael Curry, who had delivered the passionate sermon at Harry and Meghan's wedding. His message of love's transformative power had resonated deeply with the couple, and they felt his presence would bring the same authenticity and meaning to their daughter's christening. As the date approached, the logistical challenges became more apparent. Security arrangements for a private ceremony involving high-profile guests required careful coordination with local authorities. The couple wanted their home to feel welcoming and intimate, but they also needed to ensure everyone's safety. Harry had insisted on handling the security planning personally, working with his team to create protocols that would be thorough but not overwhelming. He remembered his own childhood experiences of being surrounded by security personnel during family gatherings and was determined to minimize that atmosphere for his daughter's special day. The catering had been another area where they chose to break from tradition. Instead of formal royal cuisine, they selected a menu that reflected their multicultural family and California lifestyle. The meal would feature some of Meghan's favorite dishes alongside traditional English offerings, creating a fusion that represented their blended heritage. Meghan had spent hours with their chef, planning a menu that would be elegant but accessible, formal enough to honor the occasion but relaxed enough to encourage genuine conversation and connection among the guests. The decision to serve Tyler Perry's favorite peach cobbler alongside traditional English tea cakes symbolized the kind of meaningful blend they hoped to achieve throughout the ceremony. The floral arrangements presented another opportunity to create new traditions. Instead of the formal, highly structured displays typical of royal ceremonies, Meghan worked with a local florist to create organic, garden-style arrangements using flowers from their own property mixed with blooms that held special significance. White roses from Princess Diana's favorite variety would be combined with California poppies and lavender from their garden, creating arrangements that honored the past while celebrating their present. Each centerpiece would include small plants that guests could take home and cultivate, creating living reminders of the day that would grow and flourish just like Lilibet herself. The photography plans had also required careful consideration. Harry and Meghan wanted professional documentation of the day, but they were determined to avoid the formal, posed style of traditional royal portraits. Instead, they selected a photographer known for capturing authentic moments and natural expressions, someone who could document the joy and love of the occasion without making it feel like a formal photoshoot. The couple had also decided to limit the number of official photographs that would be shared publicly. While they understood the public interest in the ceremony, they wanted to preserve the privacy and intimacy of the day for their family and friends. A few carefully selected images would be released through their preferred channels, but the majority of the photographs would remain private family memories. As the final week arrived, both Harry and Meghan found themselves experiencing a mixture of excitement and nervousness that reminded them of their wedding day. The stakes felt similarly high, but for different reasons. This time, they weren't just making promises to each other, they were making commitments about the kind of community they wanted to create around their children. Archie, now 4 years old, had been included in the planning process in age-appropriate ways. He understood that his little sister was going to have a special party where people would promise to help take care of her always. His excitement about the event had become infectious, helping to remind his parents of the joy that should be at the center of the celebration. The night before the christening, Harry and Meghan sat together in Lilibet's nursery, watching their daughter sleep peacefully in her crib. Tomorrow would mark not just her formal welcome into the Christian faith, but also a symbolic moment in their family's ongoing journey of defining their own path while honoring their heritage. "I think she's going to love her party," Harry whispered, reaching through the crib bars to gently touch his daughter's soft hair. "I think so too," Meghan replied, feeling a sense of peace about their decisions despite all the complexity and criticism they had faced. "And I think she's going to love knowing that everyone there chose to be part of her life." The christening would begin in less than 12 hours, and, despite all the planning and preparation, Harry and Meghan knew that the real success of the day would be measured not in protocol followed or traditions honored, but in the love and commitment that would surround their daughter as she began her spiritual journey. The morning of Lilibet's christening dawned bright and clear, with the kind of perfect California sunshine that made everything seem possible. Megan woke before her alarm, her mind already racing through the day's schedule and all the final details that needed attention. Beside her, Harry was still sleeping peacefully, but she could see the slight tension in his shoulders even in rest. Downstairs, Doria was already in the kitchen, preparing fresh flowers for the small arrangements that would adorn each table. She moved quietly, mindful that the children were still sleeping, but her presence filled the house with a sense of calm purpose that Megan found incredibly comforting. "Good morning, my love," Doria whispered as Megan appeared in the kitchen doorway. "I thought I'd get these finished early so we could focus on the babies when they wake up." Megan smiled gratefully and poured herself a cup of the herbal tea her mother had prepared. The morning routine felt both normal and extraordinary, like any other family day that happened to include a life-changing celebration. By 7 o'clock, the house had transformed into a hub of quiet activity. The catering team had arrived and begun setting up in the designated areas, their movements efficient and respectful of the family's privacy. Harry had insisted on meeting with each team member personally, not out of concern for their discretion, but because he wanted them to understand they were contributing to something meaningful rather than just working another high-profile event. Lilibet woke up in an unusually good mood, babbling happily in her crib until Megan came to get her. As her mother lifted her up, Lilibet clapped her hands and pointed toward the window, where she could see people moving around in the garden. "Yes, sweetheart, today is your special day," Megan said, kissing her daughter's forehead. "Lots of people who love you very much are coming to see you." The christening gown had arrived from London 2 weeks earlier, sent by Queen Elizabeth despite the tension surrounding the ceremony location. It was the same gown that had been worn by generations of royal children, including Harry himself. The gesture had moved both Harry and Meghan deeply, representing a bridge between tradition and their new path. As Meghan carefully dressed Lilibet in the delicate lace gown, she thought about all the royal children who had worn it before. The weight of history was tangible in the fine fabric and intricate embroidery, but somehow it didn't feel heavy or burdensome. Instead, it felt like a loving connection to the family heritage that would always be part of Lilibet's story, even as she wrote new chapters in California. Tyler Perry arrived first among the guests, carrying a beautifully wrapped gift and wearing a broad smile that immediately filled the room with warmth. His genuine affection for the family had only grown stronger over the years, and his excitement about serving as Lilibet's godfather was evident in every gesture. "Look at this beautiful girl," he said as Megan brought Lilibet downstairs. "She's going to change the world, just like her mama." Oprah arrived shortly afterward, her presence bringing both gravitas and warmth to the gathering. She had chosen her role as godmother carefully, understanding the responsibility it represented not just to Lilibet, but to Harry and Meghan as they continued navigating their unique path. Princess Eugenie's arrival created a moment of particular emotion for Harry. Seeing his cousin step out of the car, holding her own young son's hand, reminded him of all the family moments he missed by living so far away. But Eugenie's warm embrace and immediate ease with Lilibet demonstrated that some family bonds transcended geographical distance. "She's grown so much since the photos you sent," Eugenie said, gently stroking Lilibet's cheek. "And she looks just like Harry did at this age, except for those gorgeous Spencer eyes." Dr. Melissa Drake, arriving from Chicago where she had flown in specifically for the ceremony, brought with her the intellectual curiosity and passion for justice that had so influenced Meghan's development. Her conversations with Harry over the past few months had revealed a shared commitment to using privilege and platform for meaningful change. As the guests gathered in the garden, the atmosphere was unlike any royal ceremony that had come before. People moved naturally between groups, conversations flowed organically, and children played on the lawn while adults talked. Archie had appointed himself as the official host, proudly showing guests around the garden and explaining which flowers his mama had planted. Bishop Michael Curry arrived with the same commanding presence that had made his wedding sermon so memorable, but his demeanor was perfectly suited to the intimate setting. He spent several minutes talking with Lilibet, who seemed immediately drawn to his gentle voice and warm smile. The ceremony itself would take place under the large oak tree that had become Lilibet's favorite spot for outdoor play. Harry and Meghan had chosen this location because it felt like a natural sanctuary, a place where their daughter already felt comfortable and happy. As the guests gathered around the designated area, the contrast with traditional royal christenings was striking. Instead of formal pews and prescribed seating arrangements, people stood in a natural circle around the oak tree. The setting felt more like a family gathering than a royal ceremony, which was exactly what Harry and Meghan had hoped to achieve. Bishop Curry began with words that acknowledged both the traditional elements of the christening and the unique circumstances that had brought everyone together. He spoke about the courage it took to create new traditions while honoring old ones, and about the love that had guided Harry and Meghan in their choices for their daughter's ceremony. "Today we gather not in a cathedral built of stone, but in a sanctuary created by love," he said, his voice carrying clearly across the garden. "We come together to welcome Lilibet Diana into the community of faith, surrounded by people who have committed to supporting her journey throughout her life." When it came time for the godparents to make their promises, each one spoke from the heart rather than reciting traditional vows. Tyler Perry talked about the responsibility he felt to help Lilibet understand her own power to make a difference in the world. Oprah spoke about the importance of staying connected to one's authentic self even when facing external pressures. Princess Eugenie's words carried particular weight as she promised to help Lilibet understand and appreciate her royal heritage while supporting her freedom to choose her own path. Dr. Drake committed to fostering Lilibet's intellectual curiosity and encouraging her to question the world around her. The moment when Bishop Curry baptized Lilibet with water from the River Jordan, the same water used in royal christenings for generations, created a powerful connection between tradition and innovation. The baby remained calm throughout the ceremony, seeming to sense the love and intention surrounding her. As the formal ceremony concluded, the gathering naturally evolved into a celebration that reflected the multicultural, multi-generational community Harry and Meghan had built around their family. The menu they had carefully planned encouraged lingering conversations, and the relaxed atmosphere allowed for the kind of genuine connections that formal royal events rarely permitted. Watching Oprah deepen conversation with Doria about the challenges and joys of raising strong daughters, while Tyler Perry entertained Archie with stories about his childhood, Harry felt a profound sense of rightness about their choices. This was the kind of community he wanted his children to know, one based on shared values and genuine affection rather than obligation and protocol. Princess Eugenie spent much of the afternoon playing with Lilibet, who seemed delighted by her cousin's attention. Their easy interaction reminded everyone present that family bonds could thrive regardless of geographical distance or different life choices. The photographer captured moments throughout the day, but his presence was so unobtrusive that guests often forgot he was there. The images would later show not posed portraits but genuine expressions of joy, love, and connection, exactly what Harry and Meghan had hoped for. As the afternoon progressed, it became clear that the ceremony had achieved something remarkable. Despite all the complexity and controversy that had surrounded the planning, the day itself felt completely natural and joyful. The guests weren't performing roles or following scripts, they were simply celebrating a child they loved. Dr. Drake's toast during the luncheon captured the spirit of the day perfectly. She spoke about the courage it took to define family and tradition in new ways, and about the gift Harry and Meghan were giving not just to their children, but to everyone who witnessed their commitment to authentic living. "Today we've seen that tradition doesn't have to be a cage," she said, raising her glass toward the happy couple. "It can be a foundation upon which we build something even more beautiful and meaningful." The formal part of the celebration wound down in the late afternoon, but many guests lingered, reluctant to leave the warm atmosphere that had been created. Children played on the lawn while adults continued conversations that had begun during the ceremony. As the sun began to set over the California hills, Harry and Meghan found themselves with a few quiet moments to reflect on the day. Lilibet had fallen asleep in her father's arms, still wearing her christening gown, completely exhausted from all the attention and excitement. "I think she had a good day," Harry said softly, adjusting his sleeping daughter more comfortably in his arms. "I think we all did," Meghan replied, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction about the choices they had made. The ceremony had honored Lilibet's heritage while celebrating the life they were building for their children in California. The success of the day had exceeded their hopes, proving that meaningful traditions could be created without abandoning respect for the past. The love and commitment that had surrounded Lilibet during her christening would remain with her throughout her life, a foundation of support that transcended any single ceremony or tradition. In the weeks following Lilibet's christening, the impact of that meaningful day continued to ripple through the lives of everyone who had been present. The ceremony had created more than just beautiful memories, it had established a new understanding of what royal tradition could look like when filtered through love and authenticity rather than rigid protocol. Harry found himself thinking often about the moment when Bishop Curry had blessed his daughter under the oak tree. The image had stayed with him not just because of its beauty, but because of what it represented about the kind of life he and Meghan were building for their children. They were creating space for their kids to be both royal and normal, connected to their heritage but free to write their own stories. The photographs from the day had been more beautiful than either parent had dared hope. Unlike the stiff, formal portraits that typically documented royal christenings, these images captured genuine moments of joy, connection, and love. Lilibet's bright smile as she reached for the water during the ceremony, Archie's proud expression as he stood beside his little sister, the natural laughter shared between guests who had become genuine friends rather than ceremonial attendees. One photograph in particular had become Meghan's favorite. It showed Lilibet in Tyler Perry's arms, both of them laughing at something Oprah had said, while Princess Eugenie knelt beside them, her hand gently touching the baby's foot. The image captured everything they had hoped to achieve, multiple generations and backgrounds coming together in authentic celebration of a child they all loved. The response from the royal family had been mixed but generally more positive than Harry and Meghan had expected. Queen Elizabeth had sent a personal note expressing her pleasure that the ceremony had been beautiful and meaningful, along with a small silver rattle that had belonged to Princess Diana as a baby. The gesture felt like a quiet endorsement of their choices, even if she couldn't publicly support their decision to break from tradition. Prince William and Catherine had sent flowers and a card, their message carefully worded but warm in its sentiment. The relationship between the brothers remained complicated, but the arrival of their gift suggested that family bonds could survive even significant disagreements about how royal duties should be fulfilled. Princess Anne's response had been characteristically direct and supportive. Her phone call the day after the ceremony had included praise for the couple's courage in creating meaningful traditions and her observation that the royal family had always evolved most successfully when led by people willing to take thoughtful risks. The godparents had each embraced their new roles with enthusiasm and intention. Tyler Perry had already begun planning regular visits to California, understanding that his commitment extended far beyond the ceremony itself. His first gift to Lilibet had been a collection of children's books featuring strong female characters from diverse backgrounds, each one carefully selected to help her understand the wide range of possibilities available to her. Oprah had used her platform to speak thoughtfully about the importance of creating authentic community around children, sharing her reflections on the christening in a way that highlighted its universal messages without violating the family's privacy. Her public comments had helped reshape the narrative around the ceremony, emphasizing its spiritual significance rather than focusing on the protocol departures. Princess Eugenie had become an even more frequent presence in the children's lives, making video calls from London and planning extended visits that would allow her own children to develop real relationships with their California cousins. Her commitment to maintaining family connections across geographical distance had become a model for how royal relationships could adapt to modern realities. Dr. Drake had begun sending Lilibet monthly packages filled with age-appropriate books and educational materials, starting a tradition that would continue throughout the child's development. Her first selection had included a beautiful children's book about different cultures and traditions, perfectly chosen to help Lilibet understand the richness of her multicultural heritage. The ceremony had also strengthened the broader community that Harry and Meghan had been building in California. The other parents they had met through Archie's school and local activities had seen the christening coverage and understood more clearly the challenges the family faced in balancing public interest with private life. This deeper understanding had led to even stronger friendships and more natural inclusion in community events. Doria's role as grandmother had been particularly highlighted by the christening celebration. Watching her interact so naturally with all the guests, from Hollywood executives to British royalty, had reminded everyone present of the strength and grace that had shaped Meghan's character. Her presence had provided a stabilizing influence that helped bridge different worlds and backgrounds. The catering team's discretion and professionalism during the event had led to ongoing relationships that would make future family celebrations easier to plan. They had understood intuitively how to provide excellent service while maintaining the intimate atmosphere the family desired. Their success had become a template for how the Sussexes could host meaningful events without compromising their children's privacy. As autumn arrived in Montecito, the garden where Lilibet had been christened began to change with the seasons. The oak tree under which the ceremony had taken place started dropping leaves that Archie collected for art projects, creating tangible reminders of that special day. The flowers that had been planted for the occasion continued to bloom and attract butterflies, adding ongoing beauty to a space that had been transformed by love and intention. Lilibet herself showed no memory of the ceremony, of course, but she seemed to respond positively to visits from her godparents and the increased attention from extended family members. Her development continued normally, marked by the typical milestones of a healthy, happy toddler who happened to have an unusually diverse support network. The christening had also impacted how Harry and Meghan approached other family decisions. They had proven to themselves that they could honor tradition while adapting it to fit their values and circumstances. This confidence influenced their thinking about everything from holiday celebrations to educational choices for their children. Plans for Lilibet's second birthday celebration were already being influenced by lessons learned from the christening. The family felt more confident about including the people who truly mattered to them, regardless of social expectations or protocol concerns. They had learned that meaningful celebrations came from authentic connections rather than impressive guest lists. The success of the christening had also opened up possibilities for future family events. Harry's upcoming birthday would be celebrated in California with a guest list that reflected their new understanding of community and tradition. Meghan's charitable work had been enhanced by the relationship strengthened during Lilibet's ceremony, leading to new collaborations and opportunities. The children's relationship with their royal heritage continued to evolve in healthy ways. Archie had begun asking more questions about his grandparents and great-grandmother, showing natural curiosity about his family history without feeling burdened by expectations. The christening had provided him with positive associations with royal tradition rather than confusion or conflict. Looking toward the future, Harry and Meghan felt optimistic about the foundation they were building for their family. The christening had demonstrated that they could create meaningful traditions that honored the past while serving their children's best interests. The love and support that had surrounded Lilibet on that special day would continue to influence her development throughout her childhood and beyond. The relationships formed and strengthened during the ceremony planning and celebration continued to provide ongoing support for the family's daily life. Tyler Perry's mentorship influenced Harry's own charitable work. Oprah's friendship provided Meghan with guidance as she navigated the challenges of raising children in the public eye. Princess Eugenie's connection offered the children ongoing ties to their British family heritage. Dr. Drake's involvement promised to enrich Lilibet's educational development in ways that went far beyond traditional academic support. Her commitment to fostering critical thinking and social consciousness aligned perfectly with the values Harry and Meghan hoped to instill in their children. As winter approached, the family began planning for holiday celebrations that would bring together this extended chosen family once again. The success of the christening had created a template for meaningful gatherings that could honor tradition while embracing innovation and authentic relationship. The oak tree in their garden, now bearing a small plaque commemorating Lilibet's christening, stood as a permanent reminder of the day when tradition and innovation had come together in perfect harmony. Under its branches, a little girl had been welcomed into a community of love that would support her throughout her life, regardless of the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead. The christening had achieved everything Harry and Meghan had hoped for and more. It had honored Lilibet's heritage while celebrating her future potential. It had brought together people from different worlds in authentic community. Most importantly, it had demonstrated that love and intentionality could create traditions every bit as meaningful as those that had come before. In the end, Lilibet Diana Mountbatten Windsor's christening had become exactly what her parents had envisioned, a ceremony rooted in love, supported by genuine community, and open to the endless possibilities of her remarkable life ahead.